time. We need to restore the time.
Has the board been having discussions about that and the impact of that?
Well, what we discussed, and certainly they can speak up, but we discussed was the impact of restitution in terms of a freeze versus this. So teachers do stay on their appropriate salary step. They're advancing appropriately with the furlough. They're simply losing the 6 days of teaching. But if we did a freeze, bless you, if we did a freeze, then we would need to make good by next year, which would be moving them to the appropriate step, and that would be a big increase. Either way, it's an increase. But it said the furlough doesn't have to be in 1 year. The furlough could be an ease-in. It could be put off if this extends for another year. The furlough is one of those things that we have some flexibility in terms of determining how to resume our normal schedule.
Can you take it a step further? I think you had indicated that you had approached all of the unions. Could you talk a little bit about that and the responses to what you got and where you stand now?
As we mentioned here, all of our unions have in some way, shape, or form made concessions. I met with each of the heads of the unions and asked them to please go back to their constituency, have conversations about their willingness to sit down at the table for a freeze. And one way or another, each union has come forward with something that they would be willing to give back. The teachers union, their executive board, as every other teacher union in the state, said a freeze would not be in their best interest, and so that they said no to that. So Plan B was the furlough, which I implemented shortly thereafter. But the others have come forward with some voluntary givebacks.
If I may, you just said every union is needed as exercise of independence.
Mm-hmm.
What is the meaning of exercise of independence? Because that's something the administration exercises. What other than that are they giving back?
Well, with 36% of them taking less pay next year than they'll have this year, whether that was voluntary or not, they do in fact have a give back. That's correct.
Hang on. Here's my difficulty that I'm having, Jan, and I'm having with my constituents and parents all over the place. Because most people now have pretty consistent record between education.
Yeah.
Most of my friends, associates, are very strong students of education. What I'm hearing is what I'm getting is feedback with respect to that teachers union is 4.9% increase. There's 2% inflation, which is 6.9% real dollar increases. The average worker is not receiving 6.9% increase. Many people are receiving severe cuts. They are receiving job losses. Pensions are deficit covering the estimated. People aren't able to meet. And I'm hearing from the most adamant education scholars that they may not vote for any budget that reflects a mere 7% increase. And every other union has said they've come to it, and it's not the teachers, because I've talked to the teachers, many teachers, and they would have liked to vote for this. What do we say to these parents? How do we do this?
Jim, I'm not sure that I'm the one to be able to give you the answer to that question, other than I know that as they agreed to a contract which was in place already that allowed this to happen. That was an agreement they made before this economic situation. And that is what the board is using in order to help solve our economic problem. there are a sizable majority, over 1/3 of the teachers, will go backwards next year in terms of their pay. So I feel that that's an important piece, and I don't know how to respond to it beyond that. I simply used what I felt. My job is to protect the education of the children and also bring in a doable budget. And so the furlough was an option that was in the teacher contract that accomplishes that. Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's 2% pay. Zero rates would give you 2% pay. What concerns me is every reason, and again, it's not the teachers, every youth understanding, getting it. I think the Board of Education gets it. I think that promise is certainly. Every Indian seems to get it. The UAW gets it. The Iron Workers get it. I've been a member of union before, but I just, when I looked at $1 million, which is coming out with respect to the furlough, which is going to have to be replaced, and if we can't replace it, it may well compromise the quality of our education. When I look at technology, directed instruction, building inside is being compromised. The technology was given up last year, hoping to get some of that. With the 1.2 teachers' freeze of $125 as opposed to compromising or potentially compromising quality of education. We should do this.
Mm-hmm.
I become concerned, and I become frightened. For the first time in 19 years, we have to be frightened with respect to schools. And I can't tell you enough, if people who I know who are back in supports of education are questioning and telling me they're not based on certain parameters, is pretty wrong. And I don't think that to just sound off because I think you can, but really let's get some decisions. Or get ended contract. No matter what we do here, we pay 1.7, whether we cut it to zero, whether it goes to 95%. This budget may fail. No matter what. Because those are the sentiments.
God, listen. I understand it's a difficult conversation. I understand you all are teachers. I understand it has a direct impact. The questions are valid. I'm just going to ask you to bear with us. Okay. One of the things that we hear, again, having done this a number of years, is an equation of what Newtown's trying to do compared to other municipalities around the state and in our ERG and so on and so forth. There's all kinds of abbreviated terms to lump us in with a group of other school systems or towns. And quite frankly, that is what a lot of other school systems and towns are doing. So it is a relevant question. So again, I understand it's difficult. Just bear with us.
Just I think teachers are kids. Schools, teachers are decent, but you have to pass a budget. And I'm right.
Jerry?
I got a couple of questions. John mentioned the fact that we worry about the entire budget, and he talked about revenue. What he didn't tell you is the impact of it. And as of last night, the estimated decrease in revenue of the town is $2.4 million, which means that if the budgets come in at zero increase, we still have to raise taxes $2.4 million. Now, two concerns. Janet mentioned $78,000 in some kind of revenue. That's not in the estimate you gave us last night, Bob? No.
He wouldn't have this yet.
And the other